Hi everyone, it's Amy here from the blog I Think Therefore I Teach. Welcome to your next philosophy instalment. This one is going to be on Aristotle. So I'm going to make myself smaller. Get the PowerPoint up. Here we go. Alright, so our second ancient philosophical influence is Plato is your first. You have Aristotle. Now, first thing I do with my students is I give them 3 facts about Aristotle. The first is that, unlike Plato, Aristotle examined the world around him using his senses. This means he was an empiricist and presents therefore an a posteriori argument. Aristotle disagreed with a lot of Plato's main teachings, and he believed that everything we need is in this world. And just a little reminder, a priori means earlier, a posteriori means from the latter. So a priori is earlier to senses or prior to senses. Posteriori means post senses or after senses. I then get my students to examine the famous picture of Aristotle and Plato. I get them to look at their body language, the colours of their clothing, what their hands symbolise. So I certainly advise you kind of zooming in on the two in the middle, and Plato's in the red and Aristotle's in the blue. Very, very famous painting that you can see in the Vatican. So I do recommend you having a look at that because it really does epitomise their feelings for each other. Whilst Plato was Aristotle's teacher, and they were close friends and good colleagues, etc., they disagreed on pretty much everything. Understanding then of reality, teleology and the 4 causes. Aristotle's use of teleology. As you know from our previous video on Plato, anything that's an ology is the study of. So this is a study of teleo. We don't know what teleo is yet though, but you will in a second. Aristotle was known as the father of formal logic. Change, he said, is a good thing. Totally disagrees with Plato. Plato saw change was a bad thing. This started off his argument that there's 2 worlds. For Aristotle, change is a good thing. I then get my students to work out why change is so important to Aristotle, and I get them to do what do these things have in common. The images I show them is trees, a bumblebee, pollinating a flower. We look at the sun, we look at the eye, we look at a pregnant belly, and so these are the ideas that what they all have in common, of course, is a purpose. Everything has a purpose. A bee's purpose is to pollinate. A tree's purpose is to take into carbon dioxide and give out oxygen. Everything in existence has a purpose. It has a point to it, according to Aristotle. And so telos, the study of telos means the final purpose. When something achieves what it's meant to achieve. Now, you can have multiple of these. Once you've achieved it, you can achieve something else. So this is a continuous cycle. It's not you've achieved your purpose, that's it. No, it's a continuation. So teleology is the study of final purpose. Everything needs to change in order for it to reach its final purpose. So everything has to change. A bee doesn't just suddenly start pollinating. It has to change. It has to learn. It has to do what it can. A pregnant belly, you don't just have a baby. You've got to, brew it in the oven for 9 months. These things, things involve change, involve development. A tree doesn't suddenly start taking in carbon dioxide when it's just a seed. No, it has to change from a seed with conditions like water to grow into a tree to then be able to do that. There is nothing in existence, according to Aristotle, that does not have a purpose. For Aristotle, the form, lowercase f, hence why when you talk about Plato, it's very important to capitalise your f so you know the difference between the different types of form. For Aristotle, form is just something's qualities, its essence, it's the form of it. And this actually really helps understanding that when we come to the formal cause in a couple of slides' time. This means teleology is the study of purpose or final outcome. So a quick comparison then between Plato and Aristotle. It's good to know the differences. You could get a question in your exam that asks you to actually compare their ideas. So Plato, there is a perfect form, changeless, only one, original, ideal. We then get imperfect, changing, dying ideas from this, or particulars. So please do watch Plato if any of that's unsure, you're unsure about any of that. For Aristotle, all reality around us in the material world is material and form, matter and essence. The matter has qualities, and this is not in a separate world. There is no other world. This is the real world. The form makes it a tree. The form gives the tree its essence. So Aristotle talks us through potential to actual. Everything has a potential to change, and it must go through 4 causes or stages to get there. And the next slide or the slide after that will go through what those 4 stages are. But in order for something to reach its final end goal, it has to go through these changes in order to reach a new actual state, actuality. So potentiality is what something possesses. It possesses that potential. If the conditions are right. If the conditions are right, that potentiality becomes actuality. And this is a continuous cycle of change and motion. So once something achieves an actuality, it then has the potential for something else. And so if something can change, it exists in one actual state with potential to get into another actual state with potential. So, sorry, let's go back. Let me give you the example of a student. You are an actual student. You have the potential to be a degree student. And so through changes or conditions, the conditions, the right schooling, the right textbooks, the right time and diligence to do your work, you will then change from being an actual student, actual college student with potential, to then getting your qualifications and then being an actual degree student with potential to then get a job, write a book, do a master's, whatever it is. So it's a continuous cycle, but everything goes through potential to actual. A potential coffee bean, or an actual coffee bean has the potential to make a cup of coffee with the right conditions, water, heat, etc. It can then become an actual cup of coffee with potential to be drunk, for example. So everything constantly goes through this cycle of change and motion. Aristotle wrote about what are known as the 4 causes in his book Metaphysics. Metaphysics was the name given to the book afterwards. It means after the physics. Aristotle never actually called it that, but it was the term given when it was edited and put all together. Everything in this world changes, is in a state of flux. The Greek word motus, meaning change. To go from causes, material, formal and efficient causes, to an effect, an outcome, the purpose being achieved. And we'll go over these slower on the next slide. Thus, to reach its telos, from potential to actual, it needs to go through 4 causes, 4 stages. And so for Aristotle, nature does not act without a goal. Everything in nature has a purpose, it has a point, it has a reason to change, it has a goal it's trying to achieve. And so these are the 4 causes. It is absolutely fundamental that you remember and that you know these. I remember these as MEFEF, M-F-E-F, material, formal, efficient and final. The material is what something is made out of. That material has potential to change, and so it's the material that something is. So for example, a book is made of paper. The formal cause, or the form of it, is the essence behind it. So that is the essence of the material. What makes that material so it's capable of changing into the final outcome? So the form is often the one the students struggle with the most. It's the characteristics of the material. So I'll come back to that one in a second. The efficient is the external factors. What comes in to make something happen? What comes in to make that paper go from paper to book? And then the final cause is when it's achieved, when that final outcome, that final purpose is achieved, when that new actual state is there with new future potential. So let me give the example of the book, which is what I give my students. The book is made of paper. The formal qualities of paper is that it can be wrote on, it holds text, it can be bended, it can be folded, it's light to the touch. If you're ever unsure about the formal cause, change the material. So instead, if a book was made out of concrete, Why would concrete not work? Because it doesn't have the right essence, it doesn't have the right characteristics. You can't write, well, you can write on concrete, it'd be quite hard though, but it would be heavy, it's expensive, it's not durable, you can't fold it into a small thing, you can't write extensively, so concrete wouldn't work. How does then you go from paper being able to be written on to a book? You need writers, publishers, you need someone to actually bind it and put it together, and then the outcome is a book. The book is there to be read and enjoyed, and that is the final outcome. And so then that actual book might have the new potential to be used as in a fire, as you know, fire material. So then it has a new potential, and again those potentials can be very, very different. Every single thing according to Plato goes through these 4 causes or 4 stages, everything. So think about anything. It's easier when you come up with an example for your exam. It's easier if you start with what it's for. Start with something that's got a final cause and work backwards. So a table, let's do a table. So wood, material, wood, formal. It's solid, it's durable, you can carve it, it holds its shape. Efficient cause, carpenter. What's it for? A table to be able to put things on, like my computer. Again, if you're struggling with the formal cause, if a table was made out of sponge wouldn't have the right characteristic because all the water would go through it. It would disintegrate. It would erode. It'd go mouldy. It wouldn't hold its shape. You wouldn't be able to put things on it, etc. So it has to be made of wood because it has to have the right characteristics. You can make a table out of glass, of course, because it has again the right formal cause to it. So formal cause is what qualities does that material have that goes from material to final. As I said in my previous video on Plato, philosophers are notorious for giving metaphors or stories or analogies. For Aristotle, it is the sculptor. This metaphor basically talks through like this. The sculptor is working on a large block of granite. He hacks away at it and a young boy comes along and asks, "What are you looking for in the large block of granite?" And the sculptor says, "Wait and see." Later in the day, the little boy returns and sees the sculptor's carved a beautiful horse out of the granite. The amazed boy asks the sculptor, "Well, how did you know it was in there?" In a sense, the sculptor had seen the horse's form in the block of granite because that particular block of granite had the potentiality to be formed into the shape of a horse. Examiners don't want you to retell the story. They want you to tell you why the story is important. So obviously the granite is the material. The qualities of the granite are that it's carvable, it's strong, it's solid, it holds its shape and form. The external factors are the sculptor. But, you know, it can't happen without the sculptor. It can't happen without his vision or her vision. And you've got the chisel. A sculptor has a big block of granite. It can't do anything even just with vision. It has to have materials and tools to do it. And the outcome is the statue of a horse. At this stage, I then go through with my students again the rationalist versus empiricist standing point. So I get my students to talk through these questions to really work out, are they more of an Platonist or are they more an Aristotelian? And then I give them a few strengths and weaknesses of rationalism. This is to help them with their evaluation. And so the strengths of rationalism is it's universal. Everybody can experience the same reason knowledge. Think of maths. Maths is universal. That's because it's based on reason. It is eternal. Rationalism stays the same. 2 + 2 = 4 was the same since the beginning of time. Whether we've changed the words and the names, the concept is still the same. This is also supported by René Descartes, and we'd come to Descartes in Body, Mind and Soul. He gives example of wax. He says we can see wax, we can smell it, we can feel it in its solid form and call it wax. If you then light the wax, it becomes completely different in its physical properties, yet you still know it's wax. This is because you use your reason to say, well, that's still wax and that's wax, even though your senses are telling you it's a completely different substance. However, we cannot gain our knowledge through thinking alone. So think of a coconut. You're all thinking of a coconut now. You know it, you recognise it, you can describe it, but you cannot imagine the taste. This is something that only your senses will tell you. You do not know whether you would like the taste of a coconut without actually tasting it. And so you do need your senses to gain some types of knowledge. Your reason can tell you that that's a coconut and that's a coconut. You know the difference between a coconut and passion fruit or a coconut and a pomegranate. You know the difference. You know what the texture is, what the colour is, but you cannot know whether you will like the taste of it without using your senses. Now, I advise to not all use the example of a coconut. Examiners don't read about a coconut 100 times over. So maybe think about something that you really like the taste of or you really dislike the taste of. And again, explain how reason alone doesn't help you with that. Now, as a side story, and this is a story I told my class, I found my new favourite thing. Pickles or gherkins. Now, my reason always used to tell me, will not like them. No, they look funny. It's those horrible, ugly green things in jars. They look funny. They smell funny. My friend used to sit and eat them out of a jar, and I used to think, oh, that's horrible. Everything about them, the texture, the look of them. My reason was saying, nope, stay away. I finally put my money where my mouth was, and I tried one. Oh, so been missing out on gherkins. They're crunchy and they're really nice to the taste, and it was completely unexpected. I needed my senses to tell me that I actually liked the taste of gherkins. My reason would never have helped me with that. So there's a bit of a side thing. I like gherkins. Evaluation of empiricism then. We have a quote there in Latin. I am not going to read you it out because my Latin is atrocious and it'll just be completely incorrect. So I don't want to read something out to you that is completely incorrect, but I highly, highly, highly recommend you learn a little bit of Latin to write it in your exam. And what this Latin says is nothing is in the intellect which is not first in the sense. So nihil, meaning nothing, intellectu obviously is intellect, sensu is senses. So nothing is in the intellect, in your brain, in your mind, that your senses don't tell you first. Everything starts with the senses. It takes into account how the world really works, looks at facts and evidence. We gain knowledge because we use our senses. It's widely used by science as a method of proving and disproving theories. David Hume, who's a big name in philosophy, he is an empiricist. He uses his senses. And he says that, again, they might be incorrect, but on the whole, they don't lie. Problems. It's indirect. The mediation between sensation and perception. So, for example, your eyes, with where your eyes are, you see the bottom of your nose all the time. Your brain blocks it out because it knows your nose is there. So you don't see your nose at all. Your end of your nose is in your vision at all times. Or the way that what we see is then our eyes put it upside down, but then our brain reflips it back so that we don't see everything upside down. But your senses actually spin it and then it's flipped back. What you see is not, it's not without interference. These things have been interfered with, so it's not direct. There is no way of knowing what we are seeing is actually real. Yes, you rely on your senses, but then what happens if your senses, aren't actually accurate? What about, like I said before in the other video for Plato, if you're colourblind, you might see the sky as green. That's your reality. But how do we know the sky is actually blue? Just because the majority say the sky is blue, how do we know the sky is actually blue? I know someone's going to comment now about some sort of geographical or some fancy way of knowing that we know scientifically the sky is blue, and I'm sure there is a reason the way we know it is blue. Many people experience hallucinations or lucid dreams, so the senses can easily be deceived. So lucid dreams, obviously, when you can interact with your own dreams, hallucinations, when you see things that aren't really there, you can really affect and change what your senses are telling you. Right, the second part of Aristotle's argument is the prime mover. First, for causes, second, prime mover. I get my students to look at these two pictures and tell me what is happening and how they're linked. So we've got nails to a magnet and kittens to milk. Just, if you've got some ideas of how they're linked together, keep them banked in your mind because it's really important for the next little bit. So I'm not going to tell you the answer yet. Right, prime mover. Aristotle is very famous for saying that nothing comes from nothing. So there has to be an ultimate prime mover, a first starter of everything. What that quote means is, If you have nothing, you get nothing. Nothing is such a hard concept for the human brain to comprehend because we've never experienced nothingness. Even for a blind person, when you try and understand that concept, you close your eyes. That isn't blind because you're seeing the backs of your eyelids, so it's black, it's dark, it's still a colour. The idea of we really struggle with the idea of nothingness, of seeing nothing, of hearing nothing. And so for Aristotle, nothing comes from nothing means if you've got nothing, you get nothing. So what conclusion he drew from that is we have something out there. There's something going on. There's something here. So therefore this something has to have come from something. And for Aristotle, that is the prime mover. So the big questions that he started to ask were these two. Oops, go back. And again, you can use these in your essays. He asked these two questions. What started the cycle of motion and change? What started everything that's going on? And how does it continue? And for Aristotle, the answer was the prime or the first mover. So, for example, the rotation of the planets is eternal. The planets are constantly moving, shifting, etc. in the solar system. So how does that happen? How has that motion started and how is it sustained? So just to be clear though, examiners used to be very, very particular about this, but students do it less and less now. This is not like pushing over a dominoes. We're not talking about a cause and effect cycle here. We're not talking about the prime mover being the first push and everything going on from there. No, the prime mover is very distinct in its descriptions. It is the originator, the first cause of everything, but it's also the sustainer. It actively sustains motion, change and cause and effect. So it actively is doing this. It's not just one push and it sits back. No, it's the active sustainer of these things. So which cause is the prime mover? As in, which of the four causes is the prime mover? So I get my students to work this out. And most of the time, even though I tell them, I say that 80% of them will get it wrong. So they really think about it, they work it out. Is it material? Is it formal? Is it efficient? Is it final? And they work out their arguments to talk about in pairs. We vote on it, we talk about the different arguments and stuff as to how they've come to that conclusion. And then I give them the answers. So please pause it now if you don't want to know the answer just yet and you want to work it out yourself. If you went with material, wrong. It is not the material cause. Why? It can't be made of material because material changes. The prime mover cannot change. That means it is also not the formal cause. You can't have characteristics without material. Third, now efficient is the most common answer given. You are again wrong. The prime mover, whilst it is the external factor that comes in and does something, so logically it would be the efficient cause, it cannot, because the efficient cause, the sculptor, the teachers that help the students, the thing that comes in also changes as well. The prime mover cannot change because if it changes, it's part of the process. And so the sculptor is still part of the process of the granite to the horse. It can't be the efficient cause because you can't be part of the process. It has to be completely separate. And so the prime mover is the final cause. So this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. Prime mover has no material, no formal and efficient. It is pure actuality. It has no potential. Potential means to change. It has no potential. It's just pure actuality, pure purpose, pure end goal. Its purpose is to sustain cause and effect. Its purpose is to keep this system going. So the purpose itself is an ongoing continuation, and that is therefore, the purpose is always got that purpose is its end outcome. So it's just pure end outcome, pure final cause. It has none of the others. It's also necessary. Necessary means it cannot not exist. The prime mover must exist by definition. You cannot imagine it not existing. And so the prime mover is self-caused, self-created. The prime mover created itself. Why is that important? Because something else cannot have made the prime mover. Something else, because then what made that thing that made the prime mover made the thing that made the thing that made the prime mover? No, it has to just be final, end, pure actuality, cause of itself. It caused itself. So the prime mover is the first existing thing ever, final cause. It is the first existing thing ever with pure purpose or pure actuality. But then there's a problem. How does it do it? So let's get this right, Aristotle. The prime mover is external, exists outside of everything, so it can't be part of the process. Eternal, exists forever, was at the beginning of time, will be the end of time. It's perfect and unchanging, because if it can't change and move, because it's unchanging and it's unmoving because it's perfect. Because if something was perfect, it can't change because it changes from perfect to more perfect. No. So it can't change, it can't move, and its purpose, its final cause, is to sustain cause and effect, sustain motion. Wow. How does it actually do that? So now this is when I try and see if my students can work it out, because we've already gone over the answer. Remember back to the magnets and the nails and the cats and the milk? What did they have in common? If you said attraction is the answer. The prime mover does not move. It has no desire to move, no knowledge to move. The prime mover only thinks about itself. It's only aware of itself. Nothing else in existence can affect it. It just knows of itself. And so through attraction, things happen. We are the cats, the prime mover is the milk. We are the nails to the magnet. We are attracted, we are pulled, we are drawn like a gravitational field to the prime mover. And this pull, this draw, means that things constantly change, constantly move. So as we are moving, sorry, there is a banging. I think someone's playing football. As we are moving towards the prime mover, attracted to it like cats to milk, we go then through the four causes: material, formal, efficient, final. Material, formal, efficient, final. We actually, through attraction, go through those stages. And so the prime mover is constantly sustaining this, constantly drawing us in. So this is how everything in the universe it exists, is in motion, because it's attracted to the prime mover. And it does this by sheer will. It's not even aware of it, it just does it by sheer will. The magnet isn't aware of it, the milk's not aware of it, it just happens. Just like a cat to milk and nails to a magnet, the milk and the magnet don't change or interact in any way. So the final slide is the prime mover's qualities. It's transcendent. It transcends, it's separate and external from our universe, change and motion. It can't be part of a process, because processes means it changes. It's necessary. It has to exist. It's self-caused, self-created, and it cannot fail to exist. It's unchanged. It remains constant in a pure state of actuality, actual with no potential. Perfect. It has no potential. So it is just pure actuality. It's pure goodness. It cannot lack goodness. If it lacked goodness, then it can't be perfect. Eternal, exists forever, is out of time, so time doesn't pass, time doesn't affect the prime mover. Impersonal, it doesn't know about us, it doesn't gain knowledge, it doesn't interact, it cannot care less about this existence, it doesn't know what it's doing, it's only aware of itself. And finally, it is the final cause. It's the reason why the universe is the way it is. It's we're in constant motion from actual to potential and back to actual again. And so this constant cycle is because of the prime mover. It's the reason why it is here. It's its cause and its purpose. I highly recommend once more to have a look at the original text from Aristotle. This, however, is much, much harder. Aristotle talks in circles. Now, I love Aristotle's ethics. I'm so disappointed that the new spec does not do virtue ethics. These were the Aristotelian ethics. Aristotle's ethics are brilliant. Nicomachean ethics, so good. Whereas his philosophy, you literally, your brains will dribble out of your ears. I highly recommend you giving it a go though. So the Aristotle, if I remember rightly, the quote is something like the prime mover thinks about itself thinking on thinking of thinking, or something ridiculous like that. And basically it just means that the prime mover is thinking about itself thinking. That's what it means. But I do recommend you getting at least a little quote of it in your exam. Finally, what I talk to my students about is how many of them are similar to God, but then, because for Aristotle, the prime mover is God. Don't call it God though, because obviously God is the Christian concept, and Aristotle wasn't aware of the Christian concept. But what I also then get my students to do is I get them to discuss why Christians might not like this concept. Why would this not fit with a Christian ideal? So why would Christians not like this? So I get my students to discuss that whilst it might be similar, Christians wouldn't really like this. So I get them to discuss why. All right, folks, I hope you found that useful. Four causes prime mover are the key bits for Aristotle, but you do need to be able to compare Aristotle and Plato. You also need to know about how Plato's rationalism is different from Aristotle's empiricism. So do check those out and make sure that you've got your really good knowledge on them. If you liked this video and found it useful, don't forget to subscribe, then you never ever miss a video. Give me a thumbs up or a like if you did like it, and don't forget, please do comment. And any of your comments, please do not kind of gherkin hunt me and say how horrible they are though. We can if you want. But yeah, please do feel free to leave me a comment or ask any questions you might have. Otherwise, thank you very much everybody. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.